Hello and welcome. I'm Dave. Today we're going to learn about Django apps and templates, and I'll provide links to all resources in the description below. I'll also provide a link for you to join my Discord server where you can discuss web development with other students, and you can ask questions that I can answer and receive help from other viewers too. I look forward to seeing you there. I've got VS Code open and we are in lesson 2, and the source code for today's tutorial starts where the previous lesson ended. And there's a link in the description that provides the code for each lesson. Let's start by opening up our terminal with Control and the backtick in VS Code. And now let's go ahead and start our virtual environment. I'm going to type source, and then I'm on Windows, so I type .venv/scripts. If you're on Mac or Linux, you would want to type bin instead of scripts. After that, let's type / and then activate. Press enter. It should start the virtual environment. And if you press enter again, you should see that .venv in parentheses as well. Now after this, we need to cd into our My Project directory. So cd and then just My Project at the command line. Press enter. Now we're in that My Project directory. I'm going to go ahead and close the terminal window. After that, before we get started on anything else, I want to highlight a VS Code extension that you should probably add. So I'm going to click the extensions icon over here. After that, I'm going to type Django, and it will bring up the Django VS Code extension. Once you go ahead and install this, you can see I already have it installed. Once you install this, then it will identify some of the files in your Django project and of course have the color coding that you expect to see in your code in Visual Studio Code. Now if we combine this with another extension that I use, VS Code-icons, then you'll see some of the icons that you see in my file tree. So you might want to use this extension as well, and your files will have the same little icons in the file tree that mine do. I'll close this out, go back to the file tree. Let me open up the My Project directory over here, and we see some files like our manage.py file that we have over here has the Python icon next to it. You'll see things like that when you use the VS Code icons extension. So today we want to talk about apps in Django. Now previously we created a Django project. Now we're going to create a Django app. Apps should be modular. In other words, we might have different parts of a larger project broken into apps or applications, if you will. So today we're going to create an app for posts, but we might also have an app for users or anything else like tasks or shopping cart. Anything you would have in a larger project, you can break out into those separate features, and they're modular. So what I mean by modular is you might be able to take one of those apps from a Django project and put it in a different Django project. So you're breaking those out into separate logic, separate files, separate functions that should work independently. Let's create our new app. Once again, open the terminal window with Control and the backtick. From there, I'm going to type Py. You might type Python instead of Py if you are on Mac or Linux. From there, I want manage.py, so we're going to call something from that manage.py file. After that, I want start app, all one word, and then we need to name it. I'm going to name this app posts and press enter. This should create a new app in our Django project. And if we look over here, I'll close the terminal again, we now have a posts directory inside of the top level My Project directory. So let's open this up. We can see inside files have already been created, including a views file, which we had to create in the last lesson. Now it's already here for us. So let's look at the views file. I'll click on it in the file tree. We can see the import is already at the top from Django Shortcuts Import Render. We also had to do that in the last lesson. Now it's already here for us. So let's create a function. I'm going to say def, and I'm going to call this posts_list. And of course, it's going to receive a request. And from there, down below, we'll say return render. And then the first thing you always put in render is the request. After that, we don't have what we need to put here next. I'll just put the single quotes and we'll come back and put in what we're going to put as far as what is rendered in return. So now before we go any further, we need to tell our Python project about the new app that we added to the project. So to do that, we need to go to the settings file that we were in the previous lesson. You remember that's inside of the My Project directory that we have over here. that is inside of the top level My Project directory. So let's open this up, click Settings. Now we're in the settings.py file, and let's scroll down to Installed Apps. And at the bottom of the list, let's just add Posts in single quotes and save the file. So now we have told the app, or we've told the project, if you will, about our new app called Posts. So we can close the settings file. Now, inside of our new Post directory, let's go ahead and create another new directory, and let's name this one Templates. So we already had a Templates directory at the top level that we created in the last lesson, but this directory for templates is specific to our Posts app. Now, inside of this Templates directory, let's create another directory named Posts. So now this is specifically templates for posts that we have inside of our Post app. We're creating a name space, if you will. We're naming this specifically for posts so it's easy to identify in our code. Now, after that, let's go ahead and add a new file inside of the Post directory. And notice the little DJ over here for Django. It assumes right away that I'm going to create an HTML template, and this is how it identifies it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Let's call this posts_list.html. Now I want to type an Emmet shortcut here with an exclamation mark to get the skeleton for our page, just like we did for the HTML pages in the last lesson. But notice my Emmet shortcut is not working. Let's fix this for our now Django HTML files as identified by that Django extension we installed. So to do that, I'm going to delete this exclamation mark temporarily. Let's press Control, comma to open the settings in VS Code. From here, let's type Emmet. That's E-M-M-E-T. Now, once we get to the Emmet settings, let's scroll down until we see Emmet include languages. This is what we need. Let's click Add Item. Here, let's type Django-HTML, and then tab over, and for value, put in HTML. Now we'll click OK, and we should be good to go. Let's close the settings. Now inside of our new posts_list.html file, I can type an exclamation mark, and we get the Emmet auto-completion once again. So I'll press Tab. That gives us the skeleton for our HTML page. And now I'm just going to change document here in the title to Posts List. And I want just a capital L there. After that, I'll put an H1 here in the body, and I'll put Posts List inside of that as well. Control S to save, and we're finished with our Post List template for now. Now you may have noticed there's one file that's missing inside of our new Posts app, and that is the urls.py. We have one that we previously looked at inside of the My Project directory, so let's click that again to look at it. And of course, it's got comments up here that were originally created by Django when we created our project. Let's copy all of this, except this from django.contrib import admin. We don't need that. So let's copy this from line 18 all the way down to 25, then Control C. I guess I should say highlight from 18 to 25, then copy with Control C. Now let's go back to our post directory over here. We can click on Views once again. But now we want a new file, so I'll click the new file icon. I want urls.py. Let's just paste into this urls.py file, and from here we can go ahead and delete that admin line. So we'll remove that. Let's go ahead and remove the about line as well, because we're just going to use this line that has, I need to close out that list once again with a bracket. But we're just going to have this path that goes to this empty string, just like we went to the home page, except now we're already in the posts path. So we don't need to say posts here once again. That's already understood as far as Django is concerned. So we're going to go to Views, and then we'll have our dot, and then we'll say Posts List. And this will know where to go, because in the previous lesson in the settings, we already told it we were going to look for templates in the templates directory. And that didn't apply to just that first templates directory we created. It applies to all of the templates directories throughout the whole project. So it knows to look in our new templates directory for this post list template as well. Now remember, we never completed the views file. So let's go back to views.py, and this is where we'll specify posts a little bit more directly like you would think. So we've got the request, and now we need to say posts/post_list.html. Oh, and my bad here, this should also be posts list. It's be posts/posts_list. Neither one is missing an S at the end. So let's save that file, and now in our new app, we have created our post list template, and of course put that inside of a templates directory. And once we're in the templates directory, we're telling Django to look in the post directory and then for the post list template. But then we also created the URLs file, and it has the pattern here for our post list that is our view. Now from there, we need to go back and register our URLs that we create in this new urls.py file inside of the main URLs file that we had from the previous lesson over here. So to do that now, we need one more import. So besides path coming from Django URLs, we need to put a comma there and also import include. And now we can use include in the path we're about to create below. So let's start that as well. I'll enter and then say path, and then we're going to go to hosts slash, and then of course, single quote, comma, and then we'll have include, and now we're going to have posts.urls, if I could spell URLs correctly. Oh, and thank goodness VS Code is telling me I've got an error here because I didn't put single quotes around posts.urls, and it does need to be inside of those quotes. So now what we're telling Django is that we want to look inside of our posts app and look at the URLs file inside of that posts application that we've created inside of our project. Okay, let's save that file with Control S, and after that we're ready to start our server. So Control and the backtick to once again open up a terminal window. From here we want to type py manage.py and then run server. Press enter. And from here, of course, we get the migration warning again, like we did in the previous tutorial. We will get there. We just haven't covered that yet. Don't worry about that. We can press Control and click on the 127.0.0.1:8000, which is the port. The 127.0.0.1 is the same as typing in localhost, which you could also do, but I'm going to Control click here to launch this in the browser, and I'll open the browser so we can see it. Here is our home page that we had from the last lesson as well, and that means our server is running and it's serving this web page at the localhost port 8000 up above here. So from there we can click the About page, and we also see that. But we can also change the word About now to Posts, and we should see our post list template, and we do. Now notice we didn't apply any CSS to our post list template yet, and there are other things we can do. Now we briefly learned about applying static files like CSS and JavaScript in the previous lesson, so now we actually used templates to do that. But now let's learn a little bit more about templates, and you can see how powerful they are as we apply a nav bar and some different styles to all three of these pages. We're back in VS Code. The first thing I'm going to do is scroll down and go to our static directory, open up the CSS directory, click the style.css page. We didn't have a whole lot in here, and we won't have much more in here after this lesson, but I am going to change it a little. Just going to select it all and paste in my new CSS, where you can see I've added just a little bit more. I've got some here for the nav element that we're going to add. I've also got a main element now, and then I've got a little bit of styling for a link. And you can get all of this from the code repository for this lesson. I'm not going to go over the individual CSS here. But now, if I go to our top level templates directory that we have in our project, we still have the home and about pages. Let's click on home here, and let's change a few things. As a matter of fact, we could change quite a bit. And before I do that, I should actually create the template we're going to use for all of the pages. So let me do that before we change anything in home. Let's create a new file, and we'll call this layout.html. Now inside the layout, I want a skeleton again. So I'll type the exclamation mark for Emmet and get a page skeleton. But now we need to put in some blocks. And if you remember from the previous lesson, because we did this to load the CSS and JavaScript, we start at the top here underneath the doc type definition, and we'll have curly brackets and a percentage sign, and then I'm going to say load static, and of course that closes out with another percent and curly bracket. So now that we're loading these static assets, we could link to those, and let's just grab that out of the home file here so I don't have to retype. Now, we only had the CSS in the home. Let's go to About, and now we'll grab the link For the style sheet, we'll also grab the script tag, Control C to copy those. Come back here to the layout, and I'll just put them underneath the title. So now we have the link, and it will be completed with the CSS style sheet. We have the script, and it will be completed with the main.js file. I'm going to change this document title though. So let's press enter here so we have the opening title and then the closing title tag. And now we need to define a block. So this will start with curly brackets again, percentage signs, and then I'll say block, and I'm going to call this block the title. Now we also need to say where we're closing or ending the block. So I'll put another curly bracket, %, and we'll say end block. Now in between, we could put in what we want to have here, but it will be replaced from our other templates when we have something. So I'll show how that works, but I'll start out with just what I want as default if nothing replaces this block. So I'll put in Django App, and that's just a generic, but if I don't provide a title in any of the other pages, that's what will be here. And now let's scroll down to the page, and we're going to have two sections here, a nav, and then besides the nav, we're also going to have a main section. So inside of the main section, let's create a block here. Let's call this content. Then we'll of course end that block as well. And we don't have to put in anything for a default, so I could just leave this empty, and that's what I'll do here. So we'll end that block as well, but content can be added there to this template now that we've labeled it as content. And now for the nav, I'm just going to create something here that won't be added specifically by any template. This will just be a nav bar that gets added to every page. So I'm going to say href, set this equal to /, so this would be the home, and let me do the Windows key and period. I'm not sure what it is on Mac off the top of my head. I can type home, and it brings up the icons here. I've got the icon I want. I can close this out. Now let's put a little pipe symbol here to separate these as well. And we'll come to the next line. I'm just going to highlight this first one now, Shift Alt and the down arrow. And now I've got three separate ones, so we can change these. The next one is going to about. Let's change this to, again, Windows key, and I'm going to do happy face. And finally, let's change this one to a newspaper look, for it would be our posts. So I'll say news. There we go. And of course, I want to get rid of that last pipe. So now I have 3 links that go to the nav bar, and they're all just little emoji links. And with that, I've completed a simple layout template for this application. So now let's go back to the other pages. And I said application. Actually, there could be several apps or applications in a Django project. So this is the top level. So I've created a simple layout for the project pages. So now let me go to the home.html. And now we can make some changes here. I'm going to highlight the H1 and the paragraph here that we have inside of the body, and I'll just Control C to copy those. And then I'm going to select everything else and just hit backspace to remove it. Now I want to start out at the top with extends, and then I need to put single quotes, and I'll say my layout.html and another single quote. So I'm extending that template that we created, the layout.html. And now in this page, I'm going to replace some of the content that we created in blocks inside of layout.html. So now I'm going to say block title, and I'll put what I want to replace the Django app with. And here I'm just going to say home. Then after that, press enter. We need to close out this block as well. So once again, end block. After that, let's create our content. So now we'll have block content, and under there I'm going to paste in what I had copied before. So I've got the H1 and the paragraph element, and then down below I'm going to say end block as well. And that's now all we need for our home page, because we are adding content where we had the blocks in the layout.html file, and then it uses that template because it extended the layout.html. So now I'm going to do Control A to copy everything we added to our home.html, and Control C to copy, actually Control A to select. Go to the about.html again, and I'm going to just click above everything we currently have in there and paste in the new information we created for home. Now, if I scroll down, I'm going to take the about in the H1 and the paragraph and copy those and replace the content we had above. Then I'm also going to change home up here in the title to about. Now I can delete everything we previously had in this file, and we should be finished with our about page. Although I do kind of want to format this with an indent. I just think it looks better overall. And now let's Control A to highlight all of this again, Control C to copy, and one more page. Let's go to our posts list that we have inside of our posts app we created, and then the templates directory, post list. And let's do this one more time. So I'll paste this in above, then I'll just change the about to posts list. And below, I'm going to get rid of the paragraph altogether because we don't need it there. And then we should just have posts list and an H1 on the page, and I'll delete everything that was previously in the page. So this would be our posts list now, and we're using that layout template once again. Okay, let's open the terminal window with Control and the backtick. We have the server running, but just to make sure we get the new information, let's Control C to close it. We can arrow back up to get that run server command, press enter, should start the server once again. Now let's go to the browser. And here's the about page that we are on. I'm going to hold down the shift key and refresh to hopefully get the new page, and that's what we get. So look, we now have our nav bar across the top with the 3 different icons to navigate. We could also go back to the home page with the link we have here. You can see I did change the styles a little bit. Let's go to the post page, and when I click there, it says home. So I've got something routed wrong or something I changed. Let me go back and look in VS Code. And it could be simply in that navbar layout. And yes, I didn't add posts here inside of that template. So let's see if this picks this up or if I need to do a complete restart of the server. Well, let's go back to Chrome, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and refresh once again. Hopefully now this would go to post. Yes, I can see it's going to. So there is our post list. Here is our about page. And here's our home page, and the links on these pages, the about and home, should also work. So now you can see the power of templates, and we're going to use those a lot more as we set up our data, and then we pull that data into templates, and that creates some very powerful pages where we can bring in all of that data, use one template, but yet generate, say, many post pages or many user profiles or different things like that, all to come in future lessons. Remember to keep striving for progress over perfection, and a little progress every day will go a very long way. Please give this video a like if it's helped you, and thank you for watching and subscribing. You're helping my channel grow. Have a great day, and let's write more code together very soon.